technocommunism conversation. Welcome back to the technocommunism conversation. I'm not wearing my kufiya styled scarf. Not wearing my kufiya styled scarf this morning this afternoon, because it gets in the way a little bit. I'm going to take this mask off in a second because I'm going to read more than I usually read. So I wanted to first say Free Palestine. There's a one-state solution that is restoring the stolen land to its rightful owners, the indigenous people of this area, the Palestinians, the Jewish people, the current residents who do not fit that description, who wish to remain, can remain there if they peaceably accept the this rightful governance. That is the only path forward. It is what will eventually happen. It's only a matter of time. Justice for Palestine. I'll go ahead and take off the mask now. This is another show focusing on socialist cybernetics. Most of these shows are about this. Before I get started with the essay, I'll remind you of, I describe on this program many times that a technocommunism, and particularly using a network of strong AI assistants operating, interoperating with one another to build something quite powerful that could be the basis for a governance structure, an AI-run planned economy. You need a planned economy, not just reforms that take one step forward and two steps back, because we face capitalism's climate apocalypse. The only way to stop those forces is to take quick and direct action against the imperial fascist U.S. and fascistic powers allied with it, and build something that is much stronger than that. This is, you might say, your contention that artificial intelligence is the most powerful tool that has ever existed for revolutionary change. I'm not sure I'm buying it. What I've seen of technology doesn't strike me as that. So I want to remind you of a conversation that occurred more than 60 years ago between then President John F. Kennedy and an advisor of his, a fellow capitalist. These are both capitalists, but this conversation occurred at that precise moment before the sort of Nazification, the Project Paperclip, and heavily Project Paperclip and Nazi-influenced Central Intelligence Agency and other fascistic forces within the U.S. Won the day and destroyed that more liberalistic structure of governance of the United States. It sealed the United States' fate. It faces a similar fate to that of Israel, probably deserving worse than Israel, as Israel is effectively the 51st state of the U.S., a kind of imperial fascist outpost doing a lot of its dirty work. The U.S. has a lot of this going on. In fact, around the same time the conversation occurred that I'm going to describe, the United States was just shortly after this, or around this time, in the Korean War and Vietnam War, trying to convince other powers to use nuclear weapons against those two countries in the China region, because the United States did not want to be the only one to ever drop nuclear weapons, but they wanted to utterly destroy any people's government anywhere in service of fascism. The United States has always been a fascist country. And the only reason why the United States didn't just keep nuking places over and over and saying, well, prevented a lot of unnecessary conflict, as was said of the U.S. used nukes in Japan, was because the Soviets were brave enough to build nuclear weapons and create a nuclear deterrent there. Unfortunately, that really wasn't good for the Soviets, um, being drawn into this Cold War silliness, which is largely a fiction, but still it's bad for them. But it was something that probably saved some lives. Of course, the United States has still killed 40 million people in living memory in anti-communist wars, including at least 10 million in the countries that I mentioned alone, in Indochina and Korea. So this conversation was between another liberal thinker. We'll contrast these two individuals from the fascists of today. These are still capitalists, however. Arthur Schlesinger Jr. and John F. Kennedy Jr. I guess they were both friends because they're both juniors. They were talking specifically about cybernetic socialism, and they said that cybernetic socialism is taking hold among the intelligentsia in the USSR, and if institutions to match were built, the United States will be left in the dust. I'll read that direct quote. Let's see. Great blocking here. Arthur Schlesinger Jr. once warned President JFK that the Soviet commitment to cybernetics provided them with a tremendous advantage in technology and economic productivity, and in the absence of any complementary American program, Schlesinger wrote, "We are finished." Unfortunately, that this is the kind of thing why I say an AI takeoff could have easily happened by the year 2000, instead of us kind of stumbling toward it through techno-fascistic institutions of the fascist West. The kinds of things that I'm about to describe could have easily happened and need to happen in your lifetime if we are going to avoid this climate apocalypse death spiral. I've read this essay on this show before, but I want to read a series of essays. This whole reading will go about 2 hours, but I want to be able to listen to them again and think about how I want to rewrite them. So these are drafts of essays, all in some way dealing with technocommunism. Practical guidance for activists. The pivotal role of artificial intelligence in transformative governance within the framework of building communism is the focus of this chapter. It provides practical guidance for activists, emphasizing the necessity of crafting a compelling vision and strategy for using AI to build communism in their lifetime. It stresses the urgency of this endeavor, highlighting the existential threat humanity faces and the need for swift action to prevent extinction. Compelling and crafting vision and strategy for building communism. The first step in advocating for the use of AI to build communism is crafting a compelling vision and strategy. This involves articulating the principles of communism in a manner that resonates with diverse audiences and effectively communicates the potential benefits of this socioeconomic framework. Activists must emphasize the abolition of private wealth accumulation and establishment of collective control over automated production to begin basic needs and the prioritization of representative governance guided by advanced central planning and AI-driven decision-making. Drawing inspiration from the principles of communism outlined in previous chapters, activists should articulate a vision of a future society characterized by equitable resource distribution, sustainable economic development, and empowered citizen participation in governance. This vision should highlight the potential of AI to optimize resource allocation, enhance productivity, and foster innovation in ways that benefit all members of society. In developing a strategy for building communism, activists should prioritize outreach and education efforts aimed at raising awareness about the shortcomings of capitalism and the potential of communism to address systemic inequalities and environmental challenges. This may involve organizing workshops, seminars, and public forums to facilitate discussions about alternative economic models and the role of AI in transformative governance. Activists should also seek to build coalitions with like-minded organizations and individuals who share a commitment to advancing communism. By collaborating with labor unions, environmental groups, social justice advocates, and other allies, activists can amplify their message and mobilize support for transformative change. Leveraging leveraging digital tools and collaborative engagement for transformative change. Digital tools and collaborative engagement play a crucial role in advancing the goals of building communism. Activists should harness the power of social media, online platforms, and digital communication technologies to disseminate information, mobilize supporters, and coordinate grassroots organizing efforts. By leveraging digital tools, activists can reach a wider audience and engage with diverse communities, including marginalized groups who are disproportionately impacted by capitalist exploitation and environmental degradation. Online organizing platforms and digital communication channels provide opportunities for participatory decision-making, collective problem-solving, and inclusive dialogue that can strengthen the movement for building communism. Collaborative engagement is essential for building solidarity and collective power among activists advocating for communism. This involves fostering a culture of cooperation, mutual aid, and shared responsibility within the movement. Activists should prioritize building relationships based on trust, respect, and inclusivity, while also recognizing and addressing power imbalances that may exist within the movement. By working collaboratively, activists can pool their resources, skills, and expertise to develop innovative strategies for advancing communism and overcoming resistance from entrenched capitalist interests. This may involve forming decentralized networks, affinity groups, and working committees to coordinate advocacy campaigns, conduct research, and implement grassroots initiatives. Recognizing the urgency and necessity for societal transformation. Central to the advocacy for building communism is a recognition of the urgency and necessity for societal transformation. Activists must convey the gravity of the social, economic, and environmental crises facing humanity and the imperative for bold systemic solutions. The urgency of societal transformation is underscored by the existential threats posed by climate change, ecological collapse, and widening social inequalities exacerbated by capitalist exploitation and neoliberal policies. Building communism offers a visionary alternative that prioritizes the collective well-being of people and the planet over narrow corporate interests and profit-driven motives. Activists should emphasize the interconnectedness of social justice, environmental sustainability, and economic democracy in their advocacy for building communism. By framing these issues as interrelated and mutually reinforcing, activists can build broader alliances and mobilize support for transformative change. In conclusion, this chapter provides practical guidance for activists advocating for the use of AI to build communism in their lifetime by crafting a compelling vision and strategy, leveraging digital tools and collaborative engagement, and recognizing the urgency and necessity for societal transformation. Activists can contribute to building a movement for systemic change guided by the principles of communism. The role of AI in transformative governance. This section of the book of how to use AI to build communism in your lifetime, because if we don't, humans will soon become extinct, delves into the transformative potential of artificial intelligence and governance within the framework of technocommunism. It envisions a future where the integration of AI and human intelligence revolutionizes decision-making processes, optimizes resource allocation, and empowers citizens to shape global affairs. The integration of AI and human intelligence. The chapter emphasizes the integration of AI and human intelligence as a cornerstone of transformative governance. By harnessing AI technologies, governance systems can achieve real-time decision-making and optimize resource allocation to address societal needs effectively. This integration facilitates the establishment of a collective intelligence unit where citizens actively participate in decision-making processes, ensuring that governance is guided by the principles of technocommunism. Potential of AI surrogates and digital doppelgangers. Drawing inspiration from the potential of AI surrogates and digital doppelgangers, the chapter explores their role in shaping global affairs and influencing decision-making processes. These tools offer avenues to empower citizens and ensure that government aligns with the principles of technocommunism, fostering a more equitable and sustainable future. State-of-the-art technological ownership and oversight. This section emphasizes the importance of the state-of-the-art technological ownership and oversight in harnessing AI for the collective good. Advocating for the retention of the principle of state ownership, the author extends its purview to cutting-edge technologies. This approach aims to ensure that technological advancements are utilized for the collective good, fostering innovation and sustainable monetization across various sectors. Exploring non-invasive brain-computer interfaces. Exploring the potential of non-invasive brain-computer interfaces, the chapter highlights their role in enhancing human intelligence and facilitating collaboration between humans and AI. These interfaces enable real-time decision-making and optimization, resource allocation, allowing governance systems to respond dynamically to changing circumstances and achieve collective goals. As you may have heard, the Neuralink company, which is famously owned by Elon Musk, recently went to human trials with an invasive brain-computer interface requiring microsurgery. This is, in my view, an example of a person, Elon Musk, who is operated very much like a CIA mega asset, although that's hard to prove true, using a scare tactic, that of surgery, to create superhumans, to alienate the masses from the possibility of superintelligence, and basically continue the project of convincing people that advanced computing is the sole province of the ruling elites. Collaborative writing and AI tools. The section underscores the importance of collaborative writing and the role of AI tools in advancing societal transformation. Collaborative writing facilitates the exchange of ideas, ensures that governance systems are guided by the principles of technocommunism. AI tools optimize the writing process, enhancing communication and collaboration between humans and AI to achieve collective goals effectively. Global collaboration and comprehensive political vision. The section also emphasizes the importance of global collaboration and the need for comprehensive political vision spanning various domains. It argues that global collaboration is essential for overcoming the dominance of the U.S. military-industrial complex and establish a future guided by the principles of cybernetic socialism, and particularly an AI-run planned economy, which we can begin to build the infrastructure of using free open source digital assistants, which approach artificial general intelligence by the end of 2024, in which we can operate in conjunction with ourselves in a kind of unprecedented collaboration. This section of how to use AI to build communism in your lifetime, because if we don't, humans will soon become extinct, then presents a unique view of AI-driven governance within this framework of cybernetic socialism. It advocates for the integration of AI and human intelligence to achieve pressing collective goals, drawing inspiration from AI surrogates, the so-called digital doppelgangers, non-invasive brain-computer interfaces, collaborative writing, and state-of-the-art technological ownership. This section underscores the importance of global collaboration and a comprehensive political vision to establish a future guided by the principles of technocommunism. The vision of the future run by the United Earth Directorate. As we stand at the precipice of ecological disaster exacerbated by rapacious capitalism, the imperative for radical change has never been clearer. The time has come to envision a new societal framework that harnesses technology for collective liberation. The United Earth Directorate, administered by human hybrid superintelligence. This proposed governing body constitutes the apex of cybernetic socialist ideals and practice, stewarding planned economics on a global scale through real-time data coordination. Its digitizing architecture prefigures infrastructures of algorithmic governance that could rise in coming decades as computing capabilities continue advancing exponentially, or quite nearly so. Central to this structure lies the Central Intelligence Unit, a vast data sharing platform aggregating insights from decentralized nodes while coordinating decision making by AI surrogates. These surrogates essentially function as digital doppelgangers, instantiating the will of all global citizens. By volunteering personal data profiles, encapsulating their interests and perspectives as individuals enable AI counterparts to represent them in administrative apparatuses like the United Earth Directorate. Delegating governance responsibilities to silicon deputies through passive data sharing minimizes the burden of direct oversight while still allowing participation. Over time, iterative machine learning refinements and behavioral models help shape increasingly accurate user proxies, first in advancing original aspirations. This emergent layer of artificial delegates fosters large-scale coordination, otherwise hindered by limitations on focused human attention and agency. As digital deputies interfacing with planning algorithms, AI surrogates essentially act as proxies for human welfare. But rather than consolidating power, these tools provide conduits for projecting citizen voices into policy, vehicles for collectivist governance by, of, and for the people. Their capabilities far exceed what fleshly bureaucrats can achieve alone. Thus, the CIU integration hub forms the backbone of this system, assimilating torrents of data from personal AI intermediaries along with sensor inputs, monitoring material conditions. Powerful analytics help construct an evolving representation of collective interests while optimizing for sustainable abundance and enriching shared experiences. By processing billions of data points daily across domains from transportation to public health, economic coordination to infrastructure projects, the CIU can guide evidence-based governance in real time, bypassing inertia of unwieldy state institutions, seamlessly adapting to emergent conditions. Digitized planning based on holistic analytics fosters fluid, personalized, and participatory social administration. Representing the most ambitious application of superintelligent collectivist principles, the United Earth Directorate, administered by the so-called CIU, promises transition toward a near-term cybernetic socialist future. Its realization could end wage slavery afflicting billions, overproduction and bad production, artificial scarcity, and the imperative for destructive growth underlying capitalism. Guiding rapid automation and fungible production algorithms promise liberation from data via minimal conditional income schemes. Superintelligent systems can provide capabilities compensating for human cognitive limits, helping steer civilization towards stability. Realizing such visions demand embracing automated economics guided by collectivism rather than individualism or profit. Establishing the first kernel of the system in the United Earth Directorate can precipitate its horizon diffusion across all government levels. That's why I advocate for creating a mailing list of people who want to opt in to downloading something like Smog, a higher end open source chatbot with the purpose of building a network of chatbots operating in the way that I described. We can begin to build something that could challenge imperial fascist institutions that are killing the planet and all of the capitalists who go along with this destructive scheme. Propelling progress, though, depends on accumulating the mobilized power to implement structural reforms. With capitalism teetering as environmental tipping points loom, the window to activate alternatives is closing. We have 5 years before we are locked into a climate apocalypse death spiral, according to every credible climate scientist. The choice between technocommunist promise and barbarism will define this century's denouement. Ushering in enduring changes requiring organizing counter-hegemonic alliances among marginalized populations to erect liberatory structures transcending the present. Cultural conditioning that naturalizes capitalist realism must also be overcome through conscientization. In these fraught times, the United Earth Directorate's digitized architecture, as proposed, represents a potential bridge to post-capitalist futures where technological fruits enrich collective humanity. Its augmented intelligence systems can help administer next-generation economic formats based on radical abundance and shared prosperity. This chapter of how to use AI to build communism in your lifetime, because if we don't, humans will soon become extinct, emphasizes the urgent need for global collaboration to overcome the dominance of the U.S. military-industrial complex, which is seen as a primary barrier to building humane, sustainable economic institutions guided by superintelligent collectivism. This chapter argues that the current global political and economic system is unsustainable and that a new integrated political vision is needed to overcome the challenges of our time. Again, within 5 years, this must be done. This requires a revolutionary mindset and revolutionary action on from a great number of people. The authors argue that the U.S. military-industrial complex is responsible for maintaining the current political and economic system, which is characterized by inequality, exploitation, and environmental degradation, likely to lead to billions of deaths, if not the extinction of the human species. We emphasize the need for global collaboration to overcome the dominance of the complex and establish dominance of the complex and establish a new economic system guided by superintelligent collectivism, or this realized cybernetic socialism. We, the authors, argue that this new economic system must prioritize the well-being of all individuals on the planet rather than the accumulation of wealth by the few. So this chapter then continues exploring the potential of an integrated political vision spanning electoral campaigns, cooperatives, unions, digital activism, and protest. We argue that these different forms of political action must be integrated to focus and achieve meaningful change, but we must focus primarily on those things which communists focus on, which is building techno-revolutionary cadres, focusing on more direct action. However, nothing is off the table. We have 5 years. We have to try everything. They emphasize the importance of building coalitions across different domains to advance the principles of technocommunism and establish a more equitable and sustainable future. Furthermore, the authors continue to emphasize the importance of expanding emancipatory models while weakening capitalist hegemony across domains. We argue that capitalist hegemony is the most significant barrier to the establishment of a new economic system guided by superintelligent collectivism that is referred to throughout this work. We emphasize the importance of expanding emancipatory models such as cooperatives and unions to weaken capitalist hegemony and pave the path to post-capitalism. And I would regard this proposed structure of a network of AI digital assistants that are nearing artificial general intelligence level in 2024. These are free, and we can begin to build this structure. So this is a kind of cooperative with a particular direct action and liberation goals. The authors also, we also explore the potential of digital activism in advancing the principles of cybernetic socialism in our time. We argue that digital activism can be a powerful tool for building coalitions, mobilizing people, and advancing the principles of technocommunism. We emphasize the importance of using digital tools to build a more engaged and empowered citizenry, enabling citizens to participate in the decision-making process and contribute to the establishment of a new economic system before it's too late. To conclude this part of the conversation of how to use AI to build communism in your time, because if we don't, humans will soon become extinct. We explore a unique vision of global collaboration and emancipatory models, emphasizing the urgent need to overcome the dominance of the U.S. military-industrial complex, as it's known, U.S. imperial fascism, and to establish a new economic system guided by superintelligent collectivism in defiance of the fascist West. This segment explores the potential of an integrated political vision spanning the including but not limited to electoral campaigns, cooperatives, unions, digital activism, protest, emphasizing the importance of building coalitions across different domains. We, the authors, also must emphasize the importance of expanding emancipatory models while weakening capitalist hegemony across domains, paving the way to post-capitalism and a more equitable and sustainable future for all. Global collaboration and emancipatory models. In this work, how to use AI to build communism in your lifetime, because if we don't, humans will soon become extinct. We must again emphasize the urgency of the situation that we are currently in, and the vast array of possibilities that exist, that could exist in its place. And so this work should be viewed as a call to arms, a rallying cry for global collaboration to transcend the shackles of the U.S. Military-industrial complex or imperial fascism, and forge a new path toward a humane, sustainable economic institution guided by human hybrid computing system, superintelligent collectivism. So how does one overcome the dominance of imperial fascism led by the U.S. military-industrial complex? At the heart of this section lies the urgent need to confront and overcome the dominance of the United States military-industrial complex, a demonic behemoth that perpetuates inequality, exploitation, and environmental degradation on a global scale to such a degree that we are all endangered by it. The authors assert that this complex is the primary barrier to building a new economic system rooted in the principles of superintelligent collectivism. It is a system that prioritizes the accumulation of wealth by a privileged few at the expense of the well-being of all individuals, including that so-called 1% and other species living on this planet. Forging an integrated political vision. To combat the entrenched power of the military-industrial complex, this chapter advocates for an integrated political vision that spans electoral campaigns, cooperatives, unions, digital activism, and protest, among others. This vision is not fragmented but holistic, weaving together diverse forms of political action into a collective tapestry of resistance and transformation. It is a vision that recognizes the interconnectedness of various struggles and seeks to build coalitions across different domains to advance the principles of superintelligence and this particular vision of cybernetic socialism. Central to this integrated political vision is the expansion of emancipatory models that challenge capitalist hegemony and pave the way to post-capitalism. This part of the conversation will then champion the proliferation of cooperatives and unions as grassroots mechanisms of empowering and resistance, even knowing that more direct action will be required to achieve our goals in the 5-year time frame. These models, grounded in principles of solidarity and collective ownership, offer a viable alternative to the capitalist status quo. By strengthening and expanding emancipatory models, the grip of capitalist hegemony can be weakened, clearing the way for the emergence of a new economic paradigm guided by this particular kind of collective, as described in this network of AI digital assistants operating in your stead, in all of our steads, that will lead to a kind of structure that could allow for the existence of both superintelligence and cybernetic socialism. Further exploration of digital activism. We must also recognize that digital activism can advance these principles of cybernetic socialism. This is largely a field that is unrecognized by the world population. Digital activism serves as a powerful tool for building coalitions, mobilizing people, and amplifying marginalized voices. It empowers individuals to participate in the decision-making process and contribute to the establishment of a new economic system rooted in equity and sustainability. Through strategic and coordinated digital activism, among other things. We have to take direct action, including the building of an army, if we are going to stop this from happening, stop the climate apocalypse death spiral from happening within the next 5 years. However, focusing on digital activism, the collective intelligence of the masses can be harnessed to challenge the entrenched power structures of the so-called imperial fascist US and fascist West and their military industrial complexes. To conclude this chapter of how to use AI to build communism in your lifetime, because if you don't, humans will soon become extinct, we must issue out a clarion call for global collaboration and these specific emancipatory models. We must confront the dominance of US-led imperial fascism and the so-called military-industrial complex and forge a new path toward a more equitable and sustainable future. By embracing an integrated political vision, expanding emancipatory models, and harnessing the power of digital activism, we can transcend the barriers of the present and build a world guided by the principles of superintelligent collectivism. AI assistance as infrastructure for cybernetic socialist planning. Rapid advances in artificial intelligence, as it's known, and machine learning have resurrected possibilities for computer-assisted economic planning on a mass scale. While mid-20th century cybernetic attempts ran aground on computational constraints, among other issues, namely fascist sabotage, they also suffered from the Central Power's reluctance toward the kind of transparency that these systems would build. Contemporary automated systems hold potential as an infrastructure for decentralized participatory planning if carefully aligned to the public good. The decentralization itself is not the near-term goal. The near-term goal is to prevent this climate apocalypse death spiral, but I believe that this decentralized means of assembling these digital sidekicks into a powerful new kind of incorporation is the best path forward at this time. This chapter then examines the integration of open source AI assistance into a responsive governance network as an embryonic digital twin structure, enhancing collective oversight over economic decisions. A transitional pathway toward cybernetic socialist organization shaped by horizontal coordination rather than hierarchical control. This is the end goal of all communists, to have the state wither away, and I believe that all of this can happen in your lifetime. Algorithmic assistance systems, digital assistant utilizing natural language processing, predictive analytics, and Bayesian inference already pervade households worldwide, reactively fetching information or adjusting home environments based on habitat analysis of individual consumer patterns. Extending such approximation of context-specific goals and adaptive learning capacity towards civic environments and economic activities constitutes an active frontier in urban AI research domains. For example, the EU-funded project City.ai last year explores conversational agents mediating interfaces between municipalities and residents across areas like tourism, transportation, and public services. Through augmented comprehension of localized needs and anomalies, municipal-scale digital twins refine models balancing infrastructure stresses against community priorities. However, equipping these simmering data-driven policy tools with more ambitious functionalities around economic planning and resource allocation remains beyond typical R&D scopes, confined by either profit motives or modest government improvements. The cybernetic origins. What might an economic system look like that positions algorithmic assistance networks as foundational infrastructure across all levels of administration, production, and consumption? mid-20th century origins of cybernetic theory in areas like biological pattern self-regulation and mathematical control systems provide intriguing foundations. I'm not going to recommend the works of Norbert Wiener because, like Arthur Schlesinger, he's a capitalist, but he did a lot of work in this area. As socialist projects sought antidotes to bureaucratic indolence and mismatching between state output targets and consumer demand, cybernetic perspectives suggesting decentralized feedback mechanisms offered solutions. The Soviet economist Viktor Glushkov led ambitious but ultimately abortive efforts at a nationwide computer network called OGOSH for reconciling material balances and inventory flows by the 1970s. In Salvador Allende's brief socialist interview, another prominent cyberneticist like Norbert Wiener, Stafford Beer, implemented Project CyberSyn's systems, dynamic simulations, and computer interfaces for real-time factory coordination before the fascist Pinochet's CIA-backed coup demolished the Chilean government and this foray into cybernetic socialism. In both cases, computational hurdles interacted with authoritarian institutional hostility to transparency and horizontality, ultimately obstructed adoption despite striking prototypes. Where cybernetic systems require granular data sharing and dynamic worker participation, threatened hierarchical prerogatives, even limited tolerance swiftly evaporated. This essential hurdle is why I believe that we need to take this first very decentralized approach to building this kind of power in the way that I've described. I don't think that any other path will allow us to outpace fascistic institutions, so to speak. Contemporary moment. However, exponential increases in algorithmic analysis, scalability, plummeting data storage expenses, and diffuse sensor deployment, expanding real-time economic monitoring, and fine-grained visibility today overcome previous technical hurdles, provided appropriate digital infrastructures exist for aggregation. Unlike expensive mainframes, crowdsourced clusters of cheap devices can execute distributed coordination at vast scales. In parallel, rapid strikes towards multimodal conversation agents like Anthropic's Claude, enabling increasingly fluid, contextual human-computer interaction, expand what users without specialized expertise can access through intuitive language commands rather than rigid code. Integrating these exponential technical shifts around aggregative processing capability, analytic range, and assistive accessibility offers potential infrastructure for a contemporary collaborative economy, an open architecture of ergonomic algorithmic tools enhancing collective oversight. So what might a system architecture leveraging AI assistance networks for large-scale representative planning and central planning comprise? Network fundamentals. In one formulation, depended on specialized economic nodes, host roles like inventory monitoring, logistical coordination, or balancing or production balancing for a given region, real-time sector, or hyper-specialized domain. These interconnected digital twins fine-tune outputs drawing on streams of data from IoT sensors, LiDARs, urban monitors, and computational simulations, learning through feedback adjustment. Rather than top-down state planning blueprints, participatory electronic workspaces allow factory sentinel systems to dialogue supply chain adaptively. Rather than reconstituting ossified bureaucracy digitally through rigid form filing, procedures carried over from analog bureaucracy, assistive networks reimagine governance as collaborative design thinking. Just as advances in 3D simulation software and rapid prototyping technologies enable architectures and engineers enable architects and engineers to iterate structural models diagonally rather than simply transcribing static ideas from plan to form. Digitally embedded participation tools give stakeholders means to dynamically model policies and context. Electronic deliberation channels allow citizens themselves to drive calibration of infrastructure and investment toward care, culture, and environmental sustainability beyond capital growth imperatives. From the neighborhood forum to the transnational scale, this computerized environment for energetic economic planning circumvents ingrained institutional inertia. It renders governance as perpetual collective tuning, not rigid imposition. Algorithmic assistance serve primarily to enable what historian Richard Barbrook termed high-tech gift economies, providing supports that streamline participatory coordination rather than automated command. The function of AI is not human replacement, but cognitive and communicative amplification. Knowledge commons. Positioning algorithmic decision support systems to elevate wisdom over technocratic control depends firstly upon reconsidering data sourcing and ownership models underpinning these tools. Unlike commercial chatbots training machine learning algorithms opaquely through privatized user metrics that fuel surveillance advertising systems, participatory economic digital twins run transparently on open data sets. Information input flows derived from commons, trust and guardianship by public authorities vested directly into the hands of the populace themselves rather than paternalistically on behalf of the passive populace. Popper's injunction that knowledge gains value only when shared finds fuller realization in this abundant paradigm, eluding artificially constructed data scarcities that web monopolists leverage into rent extraction and behavior concessions. Here, open contributory data banks operate as sustainable digital ecosystems rather than proprietary resource mines, participatory infrastructure owned and governed directly by its users. Through deliberative annotation, contextual enhancement, and collectivized tagging, raw statistics transform into rich civic memory. While commercial algorithms incentivized to maximize addiction and outrage skew perceptions in ways that fracture public discourse toward fascistic conversations, assistance networks designed for understanding amplify previously ignored voices and bridge difference through compassionate re-engagement. Their purpose remains bolstering civic participation rather than covert persuasion. Even basic learning algorithms tracking discussion flows can help foreground underrepresented communities or identify promising concepts obscured through cognitive bias. Unlike social platforms commercially rewarded for polarizing attention concentration and hemmed by geographical jurisdiction, civic learning collectors pool mental resources across borders to illuminate alternative developmental pathways for economies balancing sustainability, solidarity, and flourishing sociability. In its ideal form, this commonified economic guidance infrastructure operates akin to universally accessible utilities like electric grids, roadways, or tap water. The marginal cost of another household gaining advisory access approach is nil when integrative benefits accelerate positive spillovers. Yet unlike finite physical networks vulnerable to congestion or depletion, non-rivalrous algorithmic systems thrive through proliferation, their intelligence compounding in richness and insight precision as additional participant nodes incorporate. So I think approximately 1,000 nodes could become the basis for something that could challenge this set of systems which currently enslaves and threatens the lives of billions. And you can imagine what potentials might derive from what great outcomes might derive from, say, many billions connected thusly. Supported by crowdsourced cooperative maintenance from invested community members, federated economic coordination scaffolds enable participatory tuning. Administrative interaction examples. In functional implementation, how might these imagined AI-assisted networks transform economic relationships and activities? Some vignettes provide illustrative texture. Supply, inventory, and production synchronization. IoT-enabled shelves and containers across factories, warehouses, and markets maintain real-time visibility over both aggregate and availability and item-specific stocks. As autonomous trucks with LiDAR navigation deliver inputs fabricated to order across routes, optimized by machine learning, RFID sensors continuously tally this material flow. Production planners access current inventories through regional warehouses and distribution hubs, visualized via the digital twin interfaces, and able to adjust orders adaptively to neither starve nor over-allocate resources. Freight loads coupled directly to projected inputs extracted from production supply-demand data coordinated through supply chain algorithms. Rather than blanket centralized mandates, flexible adaptation to community requests enables responsiveness attuned to lived economic activities. The system suggests rather than compels as bottom-up pull requests, not top-down delivery timetables set production targets. Facilities balance utilization rates sustainably rather than maximizing output indifference to regional or social needs. Infrastructure participatory budgeting. When citizens and working groups in a neighborhood propose revamping local street designs to promote pedestrian access and biodiversity gardens rather than vehicular throughput, interactive simulations incorporating the schematics allow evaluation against existing building loads, soil conditions, residential accessibility requirements for wheelchair users and reduced mobility individuals, microclimate factors impacting vegetation health, projected shifts in electric autonomous mobility ecosystems and other relevant domains simultaneously. Decision support systems tap documented in experiential insights from disability justice networks alongside tabulated climate impact heuristic to provide contextual guidance grounded in community priorities. Augmented dragon-speaking naturally voice dictation, for example, and machine vision sign language transcription integrate multimodal discussion spanning generations and accessibility needs. Algorithms tracking deliberative dialogue nudge constructive concepts ignored due to limited social capital toward visibility. Over weeks, the process surfaces technical considerations, evolves aesthetic imaginaries, and reconciles tensions through transfers between allocation buckets, shaping infrastructure transformations iteratively tuned to their unique place rather than mechanically imposed urban retrofits. Outcomes integrate advanced automation in the service of participatory code. Harnessing AI and cybernetics for socialist economic governance. The convergence of this so-called AI capabilities with the theoretical paradigms of cybernetic governance hold profound implications for the future of socialist economic planning. Rapid advances in machine learning, data analytics, simulation, optimization algorithms, and response actuators are expanding the toolkits available to central planners, while new integrative concepts around predictive modeling, adaptive policies, and multi-scale systems optimization provide guiding principles for leveraging these innovations toward conscious, ethical, and democratically accountable economic governance. This chapter explores the potentials of thoughtfully harnessing emergent intelligent informatic systems to enhance efficiency, foresight, and citizen capability under evolving socialist planning protocols. It provides both contemporary examples where algorithmic decision support systems are already assisting resource allocation process, as well as near-term possibilities for more transformative augmentation, automation, and architectural reconfiguration of economic oversight mechanisms. Delineating such futures requires grappling with complex questions at the intersection of political economy, network science, automation, and applied ethics. What role might AI productively play in socialist planning contexts given inherent limitations? How do we guard against potential downsides around volatility and inequality and opacity? Where should humans still remain integral? Can cybernetic insight help realize the fully automated luxury cybernetic socialism and warn against techno-fascistic overreach? These segments examine such tensions, trade-offs, and trajectories for integrating artificial intelligence with truly socialistic governance. AI and cybernetic systems in practice. While socialism has long emphasized central coordination, computational limitations, restricted implementations to relatively simple models and stagnant policies, insensitive to emerging needs or changing conditions across enterprises, communities, and the environment. But ongoing exponential gains in computing power and algorithmic approaches are dissolving prior constraints. Sophisticated analytical engines, simulations, and real-time IoT monitoring systems grant modern centralized governance far greater foresight and regulatory adaptability over a fast-moving socioeconomic complexity across multiple scales. Predictive analytics and production planning. A major advantage of algorithmic techniques involves forecasting, data-driven extrapolation of current and historical trends, supplying estimates for expected future values. Rather than basing decisions merely on outdated static figures, predictive analytics offers real-time probabilistic insights into upcoming conditions relevant for proactive planning. For instance, time series econometric analyses can combine past sales data, macro financial indicators, demographics, keyword from web searches, and even weather data to generate multivariate models accurately projecting local consumer demand across different products and services. Such demand prediction then allows for superior supply side calibration and workforce readiness in factories by alerting managers to upcoming material and labor requirements ahead of time rather than simply reacting after the fact. Adding granular production monitoring and inventory tracking IoT data from factories refines inputs further. Companies like Spark, Beyond have demonstrated that multi-million-dollar savings through superior demand forecasting and production optimization in economies from Serbia to Vietnam. Government planners can similarly leverage predictive analytics. Of course, algorithmic approaches also carry pitfalls, including bias and poorly fitted models, amplifying noise over signal, requiring thoughtful selection, comparison, or ensemble blending of statistical approaches by skilled data scientists iteratively evaluating performance. Insufficiently transparent black box techniques risk inaccurate correlations being wrongly assumed as causal, but on balance, predictive analytics empower more anticipatory, context-aware, and hence decision-making by both enterprises and central authorities, and more emancipatory. Efficient resource allocation optimization. Accounting for uncertainty makes planning intractable. Accounting for uncertainty makes planning intractable manually beyond simplified cases, given multidimensional complexities from interdependent supply chains spanning the economy. This complexity void is where machine learning optimization methods excels, excel by narrowing range of scenarios and steering toward beneficial equilibria, satisfying chosen priorities. For instance, conditional generative adversarial networks can learn latent economic constraints to propose only highly feasible resource allocation configurations, while sequential Monte Carlo tree searches explore game theoretically optimal dynamics. Such simulation suites allow perturbed trial and error exploration of countless probabilistic futures with preference maximization functions to determine superior investment trade-offs for improved stability and performance, whether minimizing projected waste or balancing regional development. Powerful enough cloud-based solvers managed by central authorities may even prove able to re-engineer entire supply chains by reconfiguring bottlenecks. Uber's machine learning cargo shifting optimizer demonstrates 8% routing efficiency gains at a scale by learning constraints. Socialist planners can adopt similar techniques modulated by equity as well as productivity goals given socio-technical parameters. Data-driven governance decision assists. Beyond material economy and prediction and control, algorithmic intelligence offers adjacent decision support functionality to policymakers designing regulatory, fiscal, and welfare policies. Hundreds of pilot initiatives across governments have begun applying techniques like natural language processing, computer vision, conversational interfaces, and trial optimization engines to selected functions, from personalized benefit recommendation for caseworkers to real-time performance management through automated ingestion of bureaucratic activity logs. Simple but useful applications of AI in governance include chatbots answering citizen queries or recommending forms and procedures, thereby reducing need for call center staff, automated speech-to-text transcription assistance, accelerating administrative meeting note-taking, legal search engines quickly scanning related precedents to assist adjudication, robotic process automation systems handling repetitive back-office documentation tasks, and even experimental policy modeling suites exploring projected implications of legislative change through causal inference and microsimulation, although most remain research prototypes rather than productive tools due to newer techniques and sparse, reliable data. But rapid improvements across civic AI systems suggest near-term improvements for bolstering bureaucratic support capacities, aiding decision quality and accountability. Common challenges around data and employment. Despite profound promise, integrating AI into economic governance also raises serious challenges regarding data infrastructure readiness, algorithmic bias, and accountability given opacity risks. Insufficient data quantity or quality, including measurement gaps on informal sectors, can severely restrict advanced analytics. Biased and poorly representative samples mislead. Concerns around privacy rights and usage monitoring prove warranted as tools influence economic outcomes for millions, requiring thoughtful safeguards against potential misallocation, discrimination, or manipulation hazards if, say, crime prediction systems emphasize selective dataset features disproportionately associated with marginalized groups, absent careful auditing. Similarly, the speed and scale of algorithmic decision-making systems require management by empowered regulators with multidisciplinary watchdog expertise spanning law, ethics, software engineering, and economics, rather than narrowly construed technocrats. Additionally, philosophies around production and employment in economics may need rethinking. Initially, automation concentrates among dangerous and repetitive jobs, but increasingly, sophisticated algorithms grow capable of substituting for roles previously deemed skill-intensive, from legal services to finance analysis, radiology, and beyond. Socialist commitments to full employment require managing such transitional impacts through policy foresight, workplace retraining at scale, and reconsidering socio-technical relations where necessary. I think that one admirable project of this incipient hive mind in the form of this network of interoperating stronger AI digital assistants would be building a livable basic income in countries, particularly those where unemployment is high and earnings are extremely low. In summary, international experiences showcase transformative potentials, but also risks from integrating AI into economic planning and governance functions, demanding deliberative governance modernization efforts, balancing innovation with ethics. But establishing appropriate data analytical oversight and participation mechanisms to align automated decision systems with democratically determined priorities can fulfill the promise. The following section examines how socialist contexts in particular may stand to benefit with such mindful adoption. Enhancing socialist central planning. The centralized nature of socialist economies offers both comparative aptitude as well as special needs around advanced analytics utilization, given heavy reliance on evidence-based five-year plans and industrial policy for steering development outcomes. China, for instance, already deploys intelligent economic management systems, integrating predictive analytics with IoT monitoring and optimization solvers for dynamic resource allocation and supply-demand balancing. However, realization of AI's full governance potential requires moving beyond such narrow efficiency fixes toward holistic and participatory cybernetic network design, harnessing technology for positive sum rather than zero-sum outcomes benefiting communities and planet alongside productivity. The subsections below outline key opportunities for modernizing socialist planning through appropriate automation, simulation, and collective intelligence augmentation. Enabling responsive real-time economic governance. The present moment confronts unprecedented volatility amidst recovering from a global pandemic, energy price spikes, climate disruptions, and worsening inequalities. Navigating this challenging landscape facing economic planners demands sensitively balancing short-term interventions with longer-run investment trade-offs. AI and IoT equipped cybernetic monitoring systems tracking bottlenecks and distress signals in real time supply signals for preemptively mobilizing resources or policies, relieving pressures before cascading failures set in across tightly coupled global networks. Quicker reactions also allow experimenting with stabilized incentives while still within manageable boundaries, rather than confronting dire all hands on deck phrases where outcomes are beyond salvaging. For small but visible effective illustrations, consider traffic intersection signal optimization using camera feeds, population health interventions triggered by online symptom clusters, and proactive greenhouse gas curbs, reacting to satellite data tracking dangerous concentration rise trajectories. Economic guidance systems similarly require sufficient observability into emergent conditions plus calibrated models guiding responses, capacities augmented through AI assimilation of high velocity data. Improving resource efficiency. Intelligent multi-agent based modeling of conservation dynamics allows optimizing to identify efficiency savings and waste reduction pathways difficult for siloed human planning. For instance, Google's data center management AI continuously learns variations in workloads for opportunistic energy savings via dynamic voltage scaling, workload scheduling, and optimized server provisioning, increasing computational efficiency nearly 40%. Similar decentralized agent-based simulation and stochastic optimization approaches have optimized irrigation systems, forestry, plastic recycling, and manufacturing. Hence, once equipped with enterprise telemetry and trained through pertinent data, socialist planners can pursue dematerialization and energy efficiency latent in complex legacy industries otherwise obscured. Indeed, optimized recycling and material circulation itself can tackle sustainability challenges. Um, careful modeling surfaced hidden waste reduction and reallocation possibilities from fine-grained understanding of metabolism. Um, Here is a continuation. Uh, Strengthening resilience and adaptation. Socialist economies face both domestic distribution, um, face both domestic disruptions and external shocks ranging from financial crises to climate change requiring systemic resilience and rapid adaptation. Here, computational scenarios modeling through agent-based simulations offers capacity to stress test existing policies and infrastructure resilience while exploring alternatives. Researchers have studied modular microgrid designs for enhanced renewable energy system adaptive capacity and simulated pandemic containment protocols. Similar cybernetic foresight methods can evaluate industrial diversification needs, critical supply chain redundancy, strategic stockpiles, and regional coordination mechanisms for crisis response. Derived insights then inform disaster preparedness investments, contingency protocols, and infrastructure modularity standards for greater systemic resilience. Um, Complementing and enhancing governance of capabilities. Rather than simple automation, the most promising AI techniques in the near term involve structured outputs from predictive analytics, optimization algorithms, and policy modeling tools, feeding into human deliberative processes as supplementary data-driven inputs for consideration and debate over economic priorities. In essence, AI can provide contextualized recommendations, forecasted metrics, bounds, and confidence intervals, quote, steering humans, steering algorithms, unquote, in feedback-driven collaboration. Numerous experiments have shown the combination outperforming either alone or by benefiting from AI's pattern comprehension and human judgment. For instance, predictive poverty targeting assists caseworkers' decisions or simulated regional impacts of infrastructure projects allow more informed weighting of intergenerational trade-offs. Such decision support blends respective strengths. The importance of oversight and control mechanisms. However, granting AI deeper involvement in economic planning also risks negative externalities if improperly implemented and envisioned. Hence, socialist oversight mechanisms should evolve to monitor automated decision systems through independent audits, ethics boards, community representatives, and even giving citizens algorithmic reciprocity rights, empowering those affected to interrogate logic and assumptions of tools deployed upon them. Clear constraints must guard against inequitable, unsafe, or untrustworthy systems behaviors. Here is a continuation. The importance of oversight and control mechanisms. However, granting AI deeper involvement in but balance. Clear constraints must guard against inequitable, unsafe, or untrustworthy systems behavior. But balanced governance, avoiding deterministic caricatures remains essential. Dystopian portrayals of AI centralized control demanding technocratic rule or conversely radical decentralization into anarchic dissolution both prove unsatisfactory and rely on false dichotomies. Optimally effective and ethical pathways involve hybrid partnerships thoughtfully orchestrating hierarchical direction, peer collaboration, and accountable autonomy across interdependent scales. Rejecting automation entirely risks foregoing benefits and ceding digital territories to capitalistic and fascistic interests. In essence, integrating oversight, transparency, and participation mechanisms proactively into next generation socialist planning systems allows harnessing AI for democratization rather than domination. By thoughtfully scaffolding technological capabilities with conscientious institutional safeguards, cybernetic socialism does promise emancipation, but naivete proves unwarranted given the risks. But naivety proves unwarranted given risks. Responsible development remains imperative as explored next. Despite promising potentials, embracing cybernetic socialist planning also warrants some degree of caution around risks from opacity, bias, and even over-automation. This section describes some challenges needing redress there. Algorithmic transparency. As AI bears greater economic planning influence, transparency around data provenance and model behavior grows necessary to build trust and enable contesting problematic recommendations. But complex techniques like deep learning neural networks challenge human interpretability, functioning almost as black boxes, amplifying risks of codifying hidden biases and causing unintended harms. Although full explainability likely remains infeasible, emerging methods around counterfactual queries, feature attribution, representative examples, and local interpretable proxies now provide some peeks inside the black box sufficient for audit. Policy mandating explainability standards would further spur progress. Combating biased and unrepresentative data. Datafication of planning through cybernetic systems risks reinforcing and even amplifying real-world imbalances if underlying training data encodes skewed social perspectives and unequal participation. Input data sets often disproportionately represent majority demographics and elite interests, potentially exacerbating inequality through allocation recommendations. Mitigating such issues requires proactive demographic assessments across data collection, annotation, and modeling processes combined with techniques explicitly compensating for sample skews to ensure representative fairness. Similarly, data gaps afflicting many informal sectors necessitates purposeful inclusion and estimation methods avoiding exclusion. The continued importance of human judgment. Despite surging capabilities, even the most advanced algorithms falter predictably in open-ended contexts, demanding general reason, compassion, ethics, and judgment. Human oversight and discretion thus remain integral for economic planning, balancing competitive priorities, interpreting subtleties, and overriding misguided machine judgments through intuitively grounded decisions and domain expertise. Rather than sole reliance on automated directives, the ideal entails hybrid partnerships respecting respective strengths, what pioneering systems engineers term centered human automation. Prepping workforce for occupational impacts. Although fears around mass technological unemployment prove overblown, historically, given countervailing job creation effects, the pace of contemporary automation suggests many repetitive and predictable tasks face replacement across sectors from manufacturing to services, over coming decades, with developing country transitions compressed. Socialist commitments to full employment mandate proactive policies around skills upgrading, transitional support, and alternative worker roles, integrating displaced groups. Some experts advocate conditional automation taxes, funding displacement compensation schemes, while others envisage policies reducing working hours, allowing wider job access in human-centric future economies. In essence, embracing next-generation planning neither demands blind enthusiasm nor reactionary rejections, but instead organized mitigation accompanying adoption through thoughtful regulation, system constraints, impacted community guidance, and hybrid algorithmic deliberative decision protocols navigating judicious pathways seeking prosperity alongside justice. the road forward. Despite warranted cautions, machine learning and cybernetics integrated thoughtfully into socialist planning systems offer transformative possibilities for radically advancing economies, environments, and living standards, given the unprecedented analysis finesse over complex interdependencies, but structured carefully around rights and ethics. Aligning innovation with socialist values and priorities. The unprecedented optimization power over economic flows promises both concentrations of power and influence alongside alternative pathways towards equitable and sustainable futures, depending on underlying objective functions encoded. Only by consciously encoding socialist values like worker empowerment, climate priorities, and social welfare guarantees directly into algorithmic reward cycles and constraints can technological transformations realize liberatory rather than oppressive potential. No, I won't editorialize. India's recent global calls for public goods AI efforts offer templates for aligning innovative incentives with ethical outcomes from the start, rather than only redressing detrimental applications post hoc. Global cooperation advancing such models proves essential against concentrations of private power. The importance of multi-stakeholder governance over AI systems. Given AI and platform economics' tendency toward dominant clusters and lock-in effects, establishing robust governance, mandating equitable information sharing, and setting outer limits on permissible systems behaviors requires adequate countervailing oversight powers resisting capture. This necessitates empowered, independent, and democratically rooted regulatory capacities, neither beholden directly to security apparatus nor technocrats, but cross-sectoral and following rule of law. The European Union's digital governance efforts offer models for emulation, balancing innovation with rights. Economic planning regulation requires similar technosocial oversight blocks attentive to changing technological landscapes and acting firmly against anti-competitive or societally detrimental industry behaviors. Reconfiguring education systems for lifelong adaptive learning. As workforce volatility grows amidst acceleration, technological transformation, education systems require increasing emphasis on cultivating versatile cognitive toolkits, from data literacy to critical thinking skills, rather than solely occupation-specific technical training vulnerable to redundancy. Secondary and tertiary curricula should expand around experiential project-based learning and AI basics, while enterprises and public programs offer low barrier reskilling ladders, enabling flexible career mitigations, better transferring hard-earned capabilities across shifting workplace contexts. Policy anticipating the zeitgeist would mitigate disruptions and harness flux. In summary, realizing grand visions around AI facilitating fully automated luxury cybernetic socialism likely remains distant, but near-term integration of selective automation, functional tools supporting planning processes could already achieve significant performance boosts on key economic, environmental, and social welfare metrics. But avoiding pitfalls requires vigilant governance. With responsible implementation, economic gains can accelerate equitable access, meeting basic needs and capabilities, enabling richer socio-cultural superstructures. In closing, this chapter recapped how ongoing exponential gains in computational power, data quantity, and algorithmic approaches are expanding possibilities for digitally augmenting economic governance processes under socialist systems toward heightened foresight, adaptivity, optimization, and citizen participation. The authors surveyed contemporary examples where AI techniques are boosting outcomes across domains from production planning to administrative automation, alongside near-term possibilities for transformative advances integrating cybernetic functionalities for more effective and representative legitimate economic regulation. However, realizing such aspirational futures demands careful reconciliation of promise and perils, navigating trade-offs around privacy, accountability, inequality, security, and humanistic meaning. Rather than either romanticizing automation as panacea to complex planning challenges or dismissing technologies entirely as inherently incompatible with socialist orientation, these works have emphasized how thoughtful and ethical integration of AI and platform techniques framed by multi-stakeholder consultation and strong oversight could help elevate shared prosperity, sustainability, and self-actualization. But progress relies on mobilizing political, technical, and social innovation simultaneously through participatory co-design of algorithms and institutions entwined in common purpose seeking justice. Technological change waits for no one. Socially conscious regulation now or determinism later constitute the options confronting policymakers as cybernetic systems infuse governance. The conclusions reached here hopefully will provide some guidance illuminating pathways to an AI-run planned economy first formed from a network of digital twins. Holistic approaches for resource allocation. Examination of holistic approaches to resource allocation based on cybernetic and socialist principles. The allocation of resources is a fundamental challenge for any economic system. Traditional capitalist approaches intended to prioritize profit maximization and short-term returns, often at the expense of broader social and environmental considerations. However, an emerging perspective grounded in cybernetic and socialist principles advocates for a more holistic approach to resource allocation, one that accounts for complex interdependencies and aims to optimize outcomes across interconnected economic, social, and ecological systems. This section examines the theoretical foundations and practical implications of adopting holistic approaches to resource allocation in socialist central planning contexts. It begins by outlining the key tenets of cybernetic socialism and discussing how holistic perspectives can enrich traditional socialist planning methodologies. The importance of considering interconnected systems across society, the economy, and the environment is then elucidated. Finally, concrete examples are provided of how holistic approaches could lead to improved sustainability, equity, and overall welfare in a planned socialist economy. Foundations of cybernetic socialism. As previously alluded to, socialist cybernetics emerged during the 60s to 1980s as some socialist theorists and scientists sought ways to develop computer-assisted planning and control mechanisms that could mimic market dynamics while retaining socialist values. Cybernetic socialism integrates insights from systems theory, computer science, and socialist political economy to provide an innovative perspective on how to model, manage, and optimize complex socioeconomic systems in an intentional, ethical, and ultimately, most importantly, ecologically sustainable manner. Several key tenets underpin the cybernetic socialist approach to holistic resource allocation. Systems thinking. The economy and society are deeply complex adaptive systems with emergent properties and multifaceted relationships between components. Holistic planning must therefore account for direct and indirect effects, feedbacks, and cross-domain interactions. Computer-assisted modeling and optimization. Advanced computational techniques should be leveraged to develop predictive models, simulations, and optimizations of planned economies. This provides a deeper empirical foundation for evaluating policy effects. Democratic participation and decentralization. While aided by computers, economic planning should not be overly centralized but allow for representative debate, worker councils, and community input at multiple nested scales. Ecological sustainability. Staying within planned boundaries and maintaining critical ecosystem services must be core objectives of any socialist planning, not ancillary goals. In combining these key elements with traditional socialist commitments to equality and meeting human needs, the cybernetic approach provides a theoretical blueprint for how holistic planning can be achieved in practice. The integration of modern computing systems, thinking, and ecological economics allows for new potentialities in modeling and managing socioeconomic complexity. The importance of interconnected systems. The cybernetic socialist paradigm strongly emphasizes interconnectedness within and between the domains of economy, society, and environment. It is therefore vital that holistic planning approaches account for these critical cross-domain interactions and interdependencies when making resource allocation decisions. Within the economic system, sectors ranging from manufacturing to agriculture to logistics have complex input-output relationships whereby one sector's inputs form another sector's outputs. Hence, enhancing productivity in one area can have multiplicative benefits across supply chains. However, conventional planning often took a relatively siloed approach oriented around key sectoral targets. A cybernetic methodology leveraging input-output modeling provides a means of better capturing production interdependencies to optimize outcomes. Likewise, on the consumption side, sectors such as food, housing, transportation, healthcare, and education are closely tied to human well-being. Investing in one area can thus yield cross-domain social returns. For instance, better urban infrastructure, improving health levels, and learning capabilities. A holistic orientation focuses planners to consider these intrinsic connections between human needs. Finally, the economy itself depends on flows of natural capital and ecosystem services as environmental inputs, while also releasing various forms of pollution and waste. Planetary boundaries are now being transgressed across domains, from climate science and biodiversity loss to land use changes and biochemical flows. Hence, ecological sustainability must be foundational to any modern centralized planning to avoid both further environmental crises and negative impacts on human welfare. In sum, the major systems of environmental society, and economy thoroughly permeate and depend on one another. Taking a reductionist or compartmentalized approach to resource allocation does tend to blind policymakers to essential interwoven relationships. By emphasizing interconnectedness, cybernetic socialism can provide an impetus toward integrated systemic planning, optimizing human and ecological outcomes together. Resource allocation in practice, while founded on a sophisticated theoretical apparatus, real advances in sustainable and equitable planning ultimately rely on practical decision-making, regulatory policies, investment health, and incentive structures. Though specific program designs depend heavily on context, some general principles can be derived about holistically oriented resource allocation mechanisms. Multi-criteria planning optimizes across domains. Conventional planning often implicitly overweights narrow economic targets at the expense of social and environmental metrics. In contrast, cybernetic input-output planning and linear programming techniques allow for explicit multi-criteria functions accounting for composite human development and sustainability indices. Strategic sectoral prioritization based on spillover effects. Given limited resources and capabilities, planners must strategically identify and differentially invest in sectors generating pronounced positive spillovers, such as education, healthcare, housing, electrification, sustainable transportation, ecological restoration, climate change adaptation, mitigation, etc. Dynamic input-output analyses can help estimate cross-domain impact multipliers. Incentives alignments across institutions and industries. Even with multi-criteria planning functions, decentralized state enterprises, co-ops, regulatory bodies, and local councils often need incentive realignments via planning prices, subsidies, taxation, representative oversight, performance metrics, etc., to maximize social benefit and minimize environmental harms from production. Just transition programs to actively phase out ecological damaging industries. As certain unsustainable sectors like fossil fuels are deconstructed, hopefully very quickly, to meet ecological ceilings, support should be provided to vulnerable workers and communities through transitional subsidies, retraining programs, and regional revitalization programs to ensure a just, equitable shift. Integrated modeling platforms and digital twins to track effects. Advanced simulation tools integrating economic, social, health, and environmental data can help planners dynamically model policy effects, retrain algorithms, and optimize outcomes. Regional level digital twin networks replicating interactive systems have great potential here. Participatory planning and democratic oversight. While aided by digital systems, planning should not be relegated to a data-driven technocracy, but continually embedded in participatory institutions like people's councils, expanded, and assemblies, allowing citizen voice and debate over economic decisions and resource valuations. In essence, holistic planning for sustainability and equity relies on optimizing algorithms and modeling, as well as political processes and institutional relationships. By aligning incentives, targeting high social environmental return investments, transitioning damaging industries, integrating interconnected effects, and facilitating participation, our path to socialist cybernetics and an AI-run planned economy and its resource allocation can improve human and ecological well-being. Illustrative optimization examples. To further illustrate potentials, hypothetical examples are presented of cybernetic multi-criteria planning scenarios improving sustainability and equity outcomes. Ecological footprint optimization. A global two-sector A global two-sector economic model tracks the resource inputs drawn from nature and the assimilative capacity for pollution outputs across extraction, primary industries, and manufacturing. Ecological cumulative flow thresholds are set as constraints within a linear planning model. Optimization suggests shifting investments from extractive into a circular economy, maximizing recirculation and dematerialization of resources while maintaining economic output levels. The associated drop in materials throughput dramatically reduces environmental footprint. Public transit and densification planning, based on sampling and mobility data, city builds an agent-based model tracking transportation behaviors, including ownership rates, mode choices, distances, and trip frequencies. Alternative scenarios around mass transit investments and land use zoning are simulated. Optimization analysis finds that maximizing quality and accessibility of public transit while allowing mixed density development can substantially reduce private car usage, road infrastructure needs, fossil fuel demands, air pollution, and household transportation costs without limiting mobility. Healthcare and education prioritization. A country constructs a disaggregated economic model with satellite health and education modules reflecting demographic attributes and well-being outcome indicators across populations. Running the model finds increasing public investments in healthcare and education systems has cross-cutting benefits. The synergies create disproportionately large gains in lifespan, income levels, gender equity, and general capabilities compared to simpler GDP-focused investments. Consequently, the model provides quantitative validation for the government to provide and reallocate funds toward the social infrastructure expansions. While hypothetical, these scenarios demonstrate how cybernetic modeling can provide empirical support for policy decisions that appear non-intuitive from partial perspectives, but promote sustainability, equality, and general welfare from the holistic systems view. Of course, any model simplifies reality and depends on its assumptions. Uncertainty and sensitivity analysis would be critical. Nonetheless, integrating predictive modeling into representative cybernetic socialist planning processes will facilitate optimizing for multiple economic, social, and environmental objectives simultaneously. In closing, adopting holistic and cybernetic perspectives on resource allocation holds substantial promises for improving real-world socialist planning outcomes in sustainable and equitable directions. By embracing computational models while retaining enhancing representation. Collective intelligence and decision making. Exploration of how cybernetic principles can enhance collective intelligence and participatory decision making in socialist systems. Socialist systems aim to distribute power and control access across society, empowering citizens through participatory political processes. However, effectively aggregating diverse preferences and achieving democratic consensus around complex planning decisions remains an ongoing challenge. This chapter explores how cybernetic principles can provide both philosophical grounding and practical techniques for enhancing collective intelligence and participatory decision-making within socialist governance models. At the theoretical level, the cybernetic paradigm recognizes that centralized planning apparatuses will always have some cognitive limitations, unable to fully model or predict the behaviors of complex adaptive social systems. Thus far, no planner or computer has sufficient computational capacity to simulate emergent phenomena arising from millions of dynamic interactions between citizens, communities, and institutions. And while this is possible, the inherent subjectivity of values and priorities means that technocratic optimization algorithms cannot fully replace deliberative political processes involving judgment and compromise. As Stafford Beer wrote, it is fundamentally the interplay between individuals that generates knowledge. Technique only provide a vehicle for communication. Hence, core cybernetics ideas around reflexivity, autonomy, and subsidiary emphasize empowering individuals while orchestrating collective self-organization through an appropriate balance of vertical structure and horizontal networking. Socialism thus depends fundamentally on widespread participation and perpetual feedback loops between policymakers and the populace regarding evolving needs, aspirations, and changing conditions. Within this orientation, cybernetic techniques offer pragmatic tools to integrate dispersed knowledge and information, scattering across citizens with specialized local insights or domain expertise that central actors lack, facilitate transparency, accountability, and reciprocal communication flows through officials and the public, aggregate and reconcile diverse preferences through structured participatory processes and appropriate mechanisms for synthesizing pluralism, dynamically adapting policies and programs based on real-time monitoring of outcomes and evolving collective priorities. In essence, rather than over-centralized planning, our vision of cybernetic socialism implies collaborative deliberation around resource allocation and priority setting, coupled to careful systemic oversight, ensuring enacted policies match societal values and collectively identified goals. The sections below examine AI-driven tools and case examples of how enhanced collective intelligence mechanisms embedded within participatory institutions can improve decision processes to better reflect the will and interests of society as a whole. AI-driven tools for collecting insight and optimizing decisions. Recent advances in digital technologies do provide expanding options for socialist governments to tap into dispersed knowledge across populations and facilitate informed ethical decisions that align with societal values. Of particular relevance are various emerging AI-driven tools that can help structure inputs from large, diverse groups of citizens while detecting patterns and insights to guide decision processes. Opinion mining extracts sentiments from unstructured data sets. Online forums, social media platforms, community meetings, and free-form surveys represent rich sources of qualitative data capturing a diversity of perspectives on governance issues. Manually reviewing such large volumes of unstructured data to identify common themes would prove infeasible. This is where techniques like natural language processing and sentiment analysis in artificial intelligence excel. Machine learning algorithms can rapidly parse textual data to extract embedded sentiments, concepts, and subjective priorities relevant to data decision relative to decision making, also revealing areas of consensus versus divergence. Data visualizations and simulations enhance cognitive comprehension. Planning issues like urban development, transportation systems, and infrastructure initiatives involve complex multi-dimensional trade-offs across time and space. Interactive data visualizations allow citizens without technical expertise to more fully comprehend policy effects and implications. Immersive participatory simulation platforms have also emerged using virtual and augmented realities to visualize neighborhood or city-scale scenarios, with users able to critique and compare alternatives. These tools elicit more informed collective opinions. Software agents and bots expand civic participation. Not all members of society have the time, resources, internet access, or political capital to engage government planning processes. Hence, community organizations should delegate software agents, as described previously, to participate on behalf of particular constituencies, encoding their shared interests, values, and priorities. Meanwhile, these present day chatbots, soon to be generally intelligent in many respects, are being developed to serve as interactive digital assistants, providing personalized guidance to citizens seeking to navigate governance systems or provide input remotely. This is a responsibility of all. However, this can be a simple click-through process requiring little time. Predictive analytics and feedback loops dynamically adapt policies. As policies get implemented, their effects will diverge from original plans due to complex systems dynamics. Here too, AI has utility through causal predictive modeling and multivariate time series analysis using IoT sensor data and satellite monitoring to compare intended versus actual outcomes. Automated rapid feedback loops can alert officials where policies need adjustment and trigger systemic cybernetic self-regulation. Of course, these techniques still depend on the underlying algorithms, data sources, and usage protocols, and embed certain assumptions and value judgments. Integrating AI into collective decision-making process thus requires careful oversight to combat biases, ensure transparency, and align tool designs with representative and socialistic principles through worker community co-design processes. Incorporating collective intelligence in planning mechanisms. The ultimate litmus test for any governance system is its ability to translate lofty ideals into ethical, efficacious policies matching societal values and priorities. The case studies below then illustrate how collective intelligence mechanisms and participatory processes aided by appropriate cybernetic tools can improve planning outcomes in practices across various domains. Crowdsourced policy and regulation drafting. Policy making frequently suffers from lobbyist influence and regulatory capture, in which narrow industry concerns dominate proceedings. Crowdsourcing can mitigate such issues by allowing disparate societal voices to directly shape policy formation. One approach is random sample voting, wherein a representative population sample is selected to deliberate and vote on proposal components. The winning provisions form legislative drafts reflecting majority interests rather than special interests. AI assistants could help structure debates, provide contextual knowledge support, clarify trade-offs, and identify consensus positions. Participatory budgeting with liquid democracy. Budgets embody key ethical choices around resource allocation and spending priorities. Several cities have experimented with participatory budgeting, enabling citizens to submit and vote on proposals for a portion of a public budget. Yet traditional formats limit engagement. Liquid democracy mediated through blockchain-based apps allow participants to delegate voting power to peers with relevant expertise around complex initiatives. Votes get dynamically aggregated to prioritize community preference, while AI could help model budget impacts. AI-assisted labor management, urban planning. Urban planning requires balancing diverse interests across industries, neighborhoods, demographics, etc. Incorporating both the extensive tacit knowledge of municipal workers and the aspirations of community members can lead to better outcomes. Recent initiatives have used semantic analysis software to elicit and systematize planner insights, coupled to immersive participatory simulation platforms for interactive community feedback. The integrated software suite provides a collective intelligence framework for proposing and critiquing planning options. Community-guided climate adaptation policies. Local communities often have specialized understanding of microclimatic dynamics plus vulnerabilities to climate disruptions. Hence, genuine socialist policy platforms are codifying community participation, adaptation, planning protocols specifying procedures for identifying localized climate threats, crowdsourcing resilience strategies, and utilizing AI to synthesize insights across neighborhoods into coordinated metropolitan plans that address unique risks. This collective intelligence approach results in policies tightly aligned with indigenous needs. In essence, incorporating principles of radical representation with opportunities provided by cutting-edge information systems can enable far richer participation in governance and economic planning that empowers communities, better aggregates dispersed knowledge, and helps overcome barriers to ethical, radical priority setting and decision making. Of course, technology is only an enabler and conduit for collective will and wisdom. Substantial improvements fundamentally relying on building democratic participatory institutions and advancing social values. This segment has explored how cybernetic thinking provides both philosophical grounding and pragmatic techniques for enhancing collective intelligence and participatory decision making in the context of our cybernetic socialist governance frameworks aimed to decentralize and distribute power throughout society. Core cybernetic concepts emphasize the criticality of feedback loops between policymakers and populace based on perpetual learning and two-way communication of sentiments, insights, critiques, and evolving conditions. Meanwhile, a range of emerging digital tools show promise in helping structure such discourse and participation using natural language processing, data visualization simulations, software agents, and predictive analytics. Multiple examples demonstrate how collective intelligence mechanisms can be incorporated across planning domains to improve policies and resource allocation decisions reflective of societal values. Of course, technology merely operationalizes underlying political processes and relationships. Progress relies on continuing efforts to build inclusive democratic institutions, giving voice and influence to all members of the community rather than just privileged subsets. Democracy has never existed. At root, socialism means faith in the capability of ordinary people to collectively guide society in ethical, prudent directions when afforded genuine opportunities for empowered engagement. With thoughtful integration of appropriate cybernetic techniques, digital systems provide expanded conduits for participatory self-governance and grassroots wisdom to flourish through new forms of radical democracy. The principles and tools surveyed here suggest rich potentials ahead for reinventing economic planning and policy making as thoroughly participatory activities vitalized by empowered communities and aided by artificial intelligence systems developed to amplify rather than usurp collective intelligence. Socialist countries must continue exploring innovations in this direction to realize their founding goals and ideals. The cybernetic paradigm offers indispensable guidance for constructing information-enriched, radically representative planning processes facilitating societal self-organization. Further ethical considerations in AI cybernetics central planning. A discussion on ethical implications of AI and cybernetics in socialist central planning. The integration of advanced computing and cybernetics techniques into this proposed centralized planning set of systems, as outlined in previous chapters, promises more optimized, responsive, and representatively accountable economic governance. However, we must also consider the ethical implications of deploying algorithmic systems even within socialist planning contexts. Without adequate precautions, AI and cybernetics could end up doing what they are meant to stop, concentrating power among a new set of technical elites, entrenching biases, diminishing transparency and hurting constituencies relying on state support. This chapter examines prominent ethical issues that arise when granting AI augmented capabilities and data-driven surveillance and modeling powers over resource allocation decisions determining societal outcomes. It highlights risks around opacity, accountability, inequalities, autonomy erosion, and dehumanization. Strategies are then discussed for ensuring algorithmic assistance constructs to reinforce rather than undermine core socialist values around economic representation, social welfare, solidarity with marginalized communities, ecological sustainability, and shared prosperity. Recommended safeguards emphasize transparency requirements, citizen participation mechanisms, representativeness criteria for data and models, oversight institutions, and hybrid decision architecture balancing automated optimization with deliberative policymaking. The ethics of advanced computing, often deemed either intrinsic or to computational techniques or as an afterthought add-on, they are. Yet in reality, just as political values suffuse economic institutions under socialism, we must recognize technical systems equally embed assumptions, priorities, and values within their very designs, data interfaces, and usage protocols. Thus, constructing ethical cybernetic planning systems must rely on a multidisciplinary co-design processes, allowing policymakers, domain experts, technologists, ethicists, and impacted communities to jointly formulate appropriate constraints, objectives, and mechanisms right from the inception before harms are entrenched. Issues around transparency, accountability, and bias. Transparency refers to the explainability and interpretability of algorithmic decision-making processes. Since advanced computing techniques like deep learning utilize such complex computational transformations, their reasoning often remains opaque even to their creators. But in contexts profoundly shaping human outcomes like resource planning, any tools substituting elite technical judgments for a representative debate must provide accessible explanations to justify results instead of functioning as inscrutable black boxes. Calls are growing for fully explainable AI mandates, ensuring algorithmic accountability and contestability at every turn where necessary. Relatedly, accountability refers to clarity around which institutions and individuals can be held responsible for algorithmic decisions, plus meaningful processes for querying, reviewing, appealing, and overriding problematic outputs, settling key performance indicators and guardrails. Scholars argue algorithms make substantive social allocations should be subject. Scholars argue algorithms making substantive social allocations should be subjected to informational rights, transparency duties, contextualization necessities when releasing outputs, monitoring by independent authorities, regular reporting, and participation of stakeholders. Finally, algorithmic decision systems risk entrenching biases and inequitable patterns for relying on non-representative data or optimizations that differentially benefit already privileged demographics over marginalized communities with less visibility in data sets or involvement in design processes. Cybernetic planning tools must proactively assess and mitigate any demographic skews in outputs or recommendations, particularly around ethnicity, gender, class, disability, etc. Algorithms should enhance rather than inhibit social justice. In essence, appropriate transparency, accountability, participation, and representation constitute crucial prerequisites before handing algorithmic tools significant influence over planning of societal outcomes rather than superficial afterthoughts. Indian economist Amartya Sen argues that even when socialist states demonstrably improve general welfare, violations around recognitional justice and participation rights ultimately corrode legitimacy, since processes matter alongside outcomes for self-determination. Any cybernetic assistances introduced must therefore reinforce rather than undermine substantive freedoms and democracy. Strategies for ethical governance and empowerment. Fortunately, promising strategies exist to preempt potential downsides and instead construct AI/cybernetic mechanisms designed to fundamentally uphold socialist values, preserve citizen voice, prevent marginalization, and refine collective decision making. Recommendations along these lines include require explainability for higher stakes recommendations. Simple linear models may suffice for localized optimizations, but complex neural networks making critical resource allocations must offer contextual dashboards, making drivers comprehensible to relevant experts and community reps able to audit soundness, like problematic correlations that lack causal grounds, and veto patently unethical recommendations. Develop glassbox IA tools citizens can probe and debate. Develop glassbox tools that citizens can probe and debate. Beyond expert-facing explainability, next generation citizen-facing AI could utilize visual, conversational, and even virtual reality interfaces, allowing non-specialists to actively probe algorithmic logic, interrogate underlying evidence chains, run counterfactuals, middle school level walkthroughs describing step-by-step computational workings in plain language help enhance public trust and facilitate deliberative debate over trade-offs. Implement rights-preserving design, testing, and usage protocols. Creating ethical advanced computing requires deliberative processes ensuring tools demonstrably improve and never impede social justice, equity, welfare, according to rigorous pre-launch testing regimes assessing disparate impacts across population subgroups combined with careful constraint setting, monitoring, and context-appropriate usage without overclaiming capabilities. Developers and institutions carry responsibilities here for prevention and mitigation of adverse consequences under established protocols. Develop participatory data governance and annotation platforms. Since all advanced computing learns from data for our purposes, and enhancing representativeness and even crowdsourcing specific missing insights from marginalized communities through emancipatory data annotation workshops can help address blind spots, combat exclusion, and build trust. Data and models demand ongoing governance input by people they affect. Embed human judgment and oversight at key decision junctures. Rather than full automation, hybrid partnerships retaining human discretion over tool outputs prove advisable, allowing contextual wisdom and democratic checks against technical overreach, but still benefiting from computational augmentation of analysis, scale, consistency where appropriate. Well-designed man-machine collaborations combine respective strengths. Cultivate the AI and cybernetic literacy through public education. Wider socio-technical fluency around advanced computing's promises and pitfalls enable citizens better protect rights and enhance governance. Schools should evolve STEM into greater literacy by integrating mandatory modules, demystifying algorithms' roles in society, focusing on the cybernetic socialist outcome, plus imparting the data ethics and critical thinking skills to evaluate tech systems as empowered protagonists, not passive subjects. Institute new public watchdog institutions, um, independent algorithmic auditing bodies staffed by specialized overseers with investigatory powers reporting to parliamentary committees can evolve today's toothless corporate ethics boards to give external societal surveillance, risk assessments, and policy guidance teeth, tackling complex challenges at scale by mandating transparency from developers and applying sanctions against detectable biases or misuse. In essence, cybernetic socialist planning should strive for appropriate cybernetic tool construction and supervision regimes facilitating radical transparency, accountability, and participation to augment rather than undermine substantive democratization. The risks posed by opaque algorithms concentrating power are real but manageable if fundamental rights and ethical priorities inform design processes from inception rather than belated bolted-on band-aids. The aim should be constructing not just technically optimal but also politically liberating infrastructure. The transformations ahead then carry promise as well as peril, just as electricity's arrival sparked fears of surveillance along excitement about progress. With ethical foundations, AI and cybernetics can help transcend particular limitations around knowledge gathering, information processing, simulation, and optimization in economic governance to better serve societal aspirations. But the window for choice over possible pathways closes quickly as algorithms permeate planning. Only by centering ethics and rights now can hazards be avoided and potentials fully realized. Getting governance right represents both principled imperative and practical necessity. People's liberties and livelihoods depend profoundly on building decency by design into whatever socio-technical frameworks emerge dominant in the century, rather than naively expecting beneficence to somehow automatically follow from technological assembly alone, absent thoughtful safeguards. We stand at crossroads where intentions and ideas matter greatly for determining outcomes downstream. Socialism must again guide the way. Implementing socialist cyberneticism and an AI-run planned economy. Practical guidance on implementing cybernetic socialist central planning systems. The preceding chapters have outlined interdisciplinary principles and technological pathways for modernizing socialist economic planning processes in sustainable, ethical, and radically representative directions. However, translating ambitious visions into tangible improvements requires careful attention towards practicalities of institutionalizing cybernetic frameworks within contemporary governance constraints. This final chapter, therefore, provides concrete strategic and policy guidance for change agents across governments, academia, industry, and civil society seeking to advance cybernetic socialist central planning where viable. Recommendations span building robust data infrastructure, nurturing AI talent, evolving supportive regulation, ensuring accountability, accessibility, and adequate privacy safeguards, championing efficiency alongside equity, demonstrating benefits through controlled pilot projects, constructing open participatory design protocols, bringing diverse stakeholders together, pursuing multilateral cooperation, and proactively addressing public skepticism through educational initiatives. Developing national open data platforms and statistical bureaus. All advanced algorithmic analysis relies on availability of high quality data sets across crucial economic, social, and environmental indicators. Hence, establishing open national data infrastructure should constitute foundational priority, learning global best practices around interoperability standards, instrumentation, and integrity preservation. Legislation mandating collection and publication of appropriately anonymized statistics across public agencies facilitates central aggregators to unlock analytical potentials and fuel modeling tools. Well-resourced statistics bureaus provide necessary integrity. Investing in advanced computing skill development and research commercialization. Sophisticated algorithms underpin next-generation cybernetic systems and simulation capacities for increasingly intricate economic modeling plus risk detection. Nurturing domestic AI talent pipelines from early education onwards ensures local ownership over tools tailored for context-specific needs and parameters rather than imported generic platforms potentially misaligned with national realities or values. Advanced graduate training programs and research institutes with specific commercialization mandates translate innovations into practice while retaining public oversight, especially regarding data access and tools regulations. Enacting regulation mandating transparency and accountability. As algorithmic governance expands, legislation must evolve in step by expanding existing checks against potential misuse and discrimination from traditional bureaucratic processes onto automated decision systems entrusted with substantial influence over people's lives. Regulation should encompass mandatory algorithmic transparency and explainability requirements for tools reaching certain societal impact or budget thresholds. External audits assessing workplace and community impacts, protections around citizen data privacy and access rights, plus independent regulatory bodies, field inquiries, complaints, and disputes relating to algorithmic systems. Compliance certification protocols would formalize accountability. Designing human AI hybrid collaborative interfaces. Rather than envisioning full automation displacing policymakers, most impactful near-term applications for algorithmic assistance center on structured data gathering, optimized information presentation, simulations for stress testing proposals, and quantitative confidence bounds guiding expert judgment. Hence, user experience design proving critical so that tools provide helpful supplemental affordances fused with existing workflows without excessive disruption. Well-designed collaboration makes strengths synergistic. Insights emerge diagnostically. Insights emerge dialogically. Value equity alongside efficiency in optimization functions. Programming algorithmic tools to simply maximize standalone metrics like GDP growth risks exacerbating inequality given inherent value judgments over whose welfare constitutes priority input. Socialist principles require key distributive and participatory parameters being incorporated in formal planning objectives functions, subjecting proposals seeking automated optimality appraisal on both efficiency and equity grounds for balanced recommendations responsive to societal needs. Pioneering controlled pilots demonstrating cybernetic potential. Given algorithmic limitations and uncertainties, arresting hype cycles warrants gradual situated demonstration of cybernetic techniques, a value add in controlled experimental environments rather than premature high-risk substitution across entire economic domains without appropriate feedback loops and oversight mechanisms established. Hence, lower stakes, localized pilots access functionality for iterative refinement while evidencing broader possibilities to generate further potential and financial capital for scaled investment resting on rigorous evaluations. Constructing open participatory design models. inclusive deliberation, consultation, and co-design processes convening diverse stakeholders from earliest stages counter risks of algorithmic governance concentrating power and propagating biases and blind spots. Multidisciplinary expert panels and citizen juries providing peer inputs on tool functionality assessments plus public interest compatibilities checks inhibit overreach while fostering trust and enriching technical comprehension of societal needs essential for enduring adoption. Pursuing South-South collaboration and open standards. The absence of dominant players provides opportunity for more equal and collaborative advancements of cybernetic systems throughout the global South, guided by shared development shared development visions, not narrowly corporate considerations. Open participatory initiatives co-defining modular platforms, protocols, and regulatory templates enhance local appropriation, common capabilities, and bilateral diffusion, avoiding dependencies on Western proprietary models or one-size-fits-all solutions insufficiently attuned to post-colonial realities and values. Proactively addressing public skepticism through education. Surveys consistently find low comprehension of algorithms' role in society, which correlates with increased concern over hypothetical manipulation risks, but equally decreased capacity to critically monitor tools or engage meaningfully on reforms. Hence, public education constitutes imperatives. Hence, education constitutes imperatives, so anxieties manifest in constructive directions through mass digital literacy programs rather than reactionary technophobia. Given automation, adaptation remains inevitable, but it's politics contingent. Media regulation plays complementary awareness-raising roles. In essence, realizing socialist cybernetic planning promises demands holistic roadmaps traversing infrastructural talent, regulatory design, evaluative, collaborative, and cultural milestones through whole of government and societal commitments for multi-year, multi-sector capacity building. The challenges remain substantial, but inspiring examples worldwide, from Barcelona's dissident platform to Taiwan v. Taiwan process, demonstrate participatory AI potentials at sufficient scale and beckon those bold enough to lead. Socialism's historic purpose persists as fostering structures and systems which best empower ordinary people. Considerations around transition. Navigating from current institutional status quos to AI-enhanced governance, to AI-enhanced cybernetic governance capacities poses transitional challenges warranting structured change management. Phased approach could allow incremental evolution, enabling gradual capability improvement across technological abilities, decisions rights, funding allocation, staff skills, and citizens' participation as public confidence expand via positive demonstrations. However, avoidance of excessive inertia is equally vital lest the inertia set in. Conducting initial landscape assessment around existing capacities. Transition roadmaps should commence with environmental scans, clarifying baseline technological assessments, employee expertise, data inventories, hardware infrastructures, algorithmic systems utilization, applicable law, and accountable governance mechanisms across relevant agencies to ascertain modernization priorities and possibilities given baseline states rather than abstract idealization alone. Cultural factors also require consideration regarding domination of specialist cadres inhibiting outsider involvement. Assessing conditions shape reform focal points. Engaging diverse stakeholders through participatory foresight. As emphasized earlier, Gradual controlled exploratory initiatives centered on augmenting specific organizational functions through automated assistance and analytics tools. Studied experiments then offer sandboxes assessing functionality, building internal receptivity to change, socio-technical configurations, and generating demonstrator viability evidence to convince hesitant leadership toward upscaling approval by answering open questions and managing expectations. Failures contain lessons if adjustments are culture cultivated. In investing in capability enhancement and training, equipping personnel across managerial, technical, and oversight specializations with requisite skill sets proves essential to mitigate principal agent problems from specialization knowledge, asymmetries, disempowering client departments unable to critically evaluate external consultant offerings on algorithmic solutions, or properly integrate tools procured. Hence, upskilling programs in data science programming, simulation, interface design, and algorithm auditing constitute key capacity building priorities institutions must must self-identify and redress. Learning reflexive lessons from global smart city pitfalls. Too many municipalities poured billions into smart city schemes led by IBM, Cisco, and other Western tech analysts, more fixated on sales of proprietary Internet of Things sensors and analytics dashboards rather than resolving pressing urban challenges or building local capabilities beyond consumption of corporate solutions. Their overpriced, underperforming technical infrastructures hold cautionary lessons about the hazards of techno-solutionist fads over human-centric, community accountable innovation pathways manifesting cybernetic principles outlined earlier, seeking emancipatory outcomes from technology, not just efficiency or convenience devoid of empowerment. In essence, avoiding deficient outcomes requires calibrating implementation timelines, evaluating preparatory milestones, commitment phasing, and reskilling provisions sufficient for a smooth rather than abrupt or destabilizing transition given the complexity of interdependent social, political, and technical systems. Not all locales today possess governance ecosystems ready to adopt cybernetic planning models outright, perhaps, but all at least can embark gradually on modernization trajectories and improving environmental monitoring, sensor networks, statistical data gathering, algorithmic literacy, and participatory foresight capabilities constituting infrastructure for potential eventual adoption. With patience and wisdom, socialist algorithmic assistance shall come, but societies must equip themselves capacity-wise to benefit rather than passively receive foreign imports or let rapacious technology capital seize the helm against public interest. Continue to do so. Now marks the hour to begin embedding intelligence infrastructure for empowerment. Recommendations for key stakeholders. Realizing decarbonized economies through cybernetic socialist pathways demands proactive leadership by diverse change makers through spheres of possible influence. This section offers targeted recommendations aimed at activists, would-be policymakers, and technical communities, respectively. Guidance for the next generation of policymakers. Budget for data sets, procurement, skilled personnel, digital systems, and pilot programs demonstrating cybernetic techniques, plus participatory oversight architectures. Pass legislation and regulations mandating governance transparency, algorithmic explainability, external audits, privacy protections, plus public interest constraints setting on analytics usage. Empowered regulatory. Here are some additional recommendations for policymakers seeking to advance cybernetic socialist governance. Create dedicated innovation offices and chief technical officer roles focused on modernization priorities and coordination across government agencies, sponsor international collaboration with peer countries around open standards, modular platforms, and knowledge exchange on data infrastructure and AI systems, establish legal frameworks recognizing positive rights to digital accessibility, skills development, and public participation in algorithmic decision-making processes, develop broad partnerships guided by social good principles rather than profit motives alone, ensuring public data and invented technologies remain under democratic control, are built under democratic control. Require government software and models to be open source by default for transparency while crafting protections against misuse or appropriation by hostile interests. Fund new public watchdog institutions, civil society bodies, and university centers providing ongoing risk assessment, audits, and policy guidance around government AI systems from a public interest perspective. Create participatory technological assessments and and foresight processes, bringing together policymakers, technologists, domain experts from civil society to shape priorities and applications for algorithmic governance in line with collective values. Restructure educational curricula from early grades onwards around data literacy and civics to develop socio-technical fluency and empower democratic engagement on governance technologies among future generations. This road to an AI-run planned economy is complex, but users and would-be policymakers can take concrete steps even without a revolutionary milieu, but hopefully this is the revolutionary milieu, laying foundations for more transformative possibilities gradually emerging as cybernetic techniques demonstrate value and socialist polities deepen capacities. With technological change quickening, the window for steering developments towards justice expands only briefly before closing. The time for your leadership is now. These chapters and the earlier chapters in how to use AI to build communism in your lifetime, because if we don't, humans will soon become extinct, were an exploration of how advanced computing can help create a more just and sustainable world. This book introduced to us new concepts in cybernetic socialism around the building of an AI-run planned economy, particularly built upon a network of digital twins representing all users. And this is a world where AI is used to benefit everyone, not just a select few as at present. Our exploration begins with an introduction that sets the stage for our understanding of this form of cybernetic socialism, which is also called technocommunism in this book. We learn about the history of AI and why it's important for shaping the future of society. From there, we dive into the urgent need for global collaboration, and this book highlights how working together can help overcome challenges like the U.S. military-industrial complex, which most prominently stands in the way of creating a fairer economic system guided by this emerging superintelligent collectivism. As we continued through the text, we discovered the power of an integrated political vision. By combining efforts across different areas like elections, cooperatives, unions, and digital activism, we can make a real difference in building a better world. This book emphasizes the importance of building coalitions and working together to advance the principles of an AI-run planned economy. One of the most important parts of the book is when we explore how digital activism can build positive change. We learn how using online platforms and tools can empower individuals to make their voices heard and advocate for a more equitable and sustainable future. Digital activism is like a superpower that can help us shape the world we want to live in. Our understanding deepens as we continue into the role of AI assistance in shaping socialist planning. These digital helpers can assist in making decisions that benefit society as a whole, moving us toward a more decentralized and participatory form of governance in your lifetime. By harnessing the power of AI in this way, we can pave the path toward a fairer and more efficient society. Throughout the book, we encounter the call for global collaboration and emancipatory models. These concepts have urged us to work together to create a world where everyone has equal opportunities and rights by expanding models that challenge fascistic and capitalistic norms and embrace digital tools for activism. We can bring about positive change and build a future guided by the principles of superintelligent collectivism. In the conclusion of this work, we were reminded of the importance of our collective efforts in shaping a better future. The book leaves us with a sense of hope and empowerment, knowing that we can work together and embrace the potential of AI, and in doing so, we can create a world where everyone can thrive, and live as long as they want to. We will all have the power to shape the future by understanding the concepts of cybernetic socialism and an AI-run planned economy and the role of advanced computing in societal transformation. We will become agents of change in our communities. This book has served as a guide for us to explore these new ideas, challenging existing norms, and working toward a fairer and more sustainable world for us all. How to use AI to build communism in your lifetime, because if we don't, humans will all soon become extinct, is thus a thought-provoking and inspiring read that shows the potential of AI in shaping a better future. And it encourages you to think critically, act collectively, and dream big as we strive toward a world guided by principles of equality, sustainability, and the aforementioned superintelligent collectivism.